Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5 and see how it compares against the iPhone 14 not even in 2023, these are basically brand new phones as of right now. So if you want to pick up either one of these devices, the links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, the big thing I would recommend telling you all is that the iPhone 14 is a very different phone than the Z Flip 5, and so is the Z Flip 5 to the iPhone 14. They are very, very different devices, and one isn't necessarily the perfect one for each individual person out there. So the way I would kind of start this off is that with a device like the iPhone 14, this is more, I guess, of a regular phone and more of the common phone for the common person out there. This device has a 6.1-inch Super Retina Extra OLED display, and it's a very good looking display. It's a good panel for the most part. It's not perfect, it's 60 Hz, but I do think it's a good panel, and I'm a fan of it. You know, again, it's not perfect. You still have the notch up top. You still have, you know, not that much bezel around it, but it's definitely it's not an older type of design, but it's the tried and true method. And when we have something like the Flip 5 that's pushing boundaries, it is honestly kind of interesting that Apple's gotten this far with literally kind of the same type of style over and over and over again, and they're still selling crazy numbers. Now, on the flip side, no pun intended, we have the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5. This thing has two different displays on it. So when it's closed, it has that 3.4-inch cover display. Super AMOLED, looks very good. I like that, display. It's good for the most part. But then when you flip this thing open, that's when you get that actual 6.7-inch foldable dynamic AMOLED display. And this display I think is also very good. It's a really good panel. It's 120 Hz, 1080p, and again, there's not a lot to complain about with this panel, but there are a few things. One, you are getting that crease in the middle, and two, I just don't think it's actually that great of a panel compared to like the iPhone 14. So that's kind of been one thing that's kind of thrown me off a little bit too, is that I kind of do think that the style of the iPhone 14 is better and more familiar with me, but I like the Flip 5 for pushing boundaries and things like that. So that's honestly kind of a really nice thing going for the Flip 5 as well. So on the outside, again, it's kind of a complicated situation, but that's kind of how I kind of see both these devices. Now the Flip 5 has USB-C on the bottom, the iPhone 14 has a lightning port, and the sides are kind of similar. They're both very, very flat sides with aluminum, so it's kind of nice. And on the back, you are getting the, I guess how you look at it, you're getting the display half on the Flip 5, but you're also getting a dual camera setup up there as well. And the half of it is basically frosted glass back. So that's something that's kind of interesting. You're getting that frosted glass back on that device. With the iPhone 14, you're getting a full-on glass back. So it's kind of a cool thing going on there too. But I don't know if there's one that's like exponentially better than the other one, but do know that there are a lot more moving pieces on the Flip 5 than on the iPhone 14, and that's just something that we've seen time and time and time again. So from that perspective on the outside, again, you're getting IP certification, you're getting a lot of similarity between them, as well. But I do like the Flip 5 for pushing boundaries from that perspective, but I do think that the iPhone 14 is probably the one that I look at more so than not, as probably the one that's a little bit more regular, or the one that's probably more comfortable for a lot more people to use, if that makes sense. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, moving on to the other side of things, the, camera situation between them, there's a lot of similarity here as well. So with the iPhone 14, you're basically getting that dual camera setup. So, it's 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 4K at 60, really solid cameras between both. Whereas the Flip 5, you're getting also a dual camera setup at 12 megapixels. So it's 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide as well, which is really cool. You're doing 4K at 60 on the back. You are able to do 4K at 60 on the front of the iPhone 14, where the Flip 5 can only do 4K at 30. So that's kind of a slight difference between them as well. Again, it's not the end of the world or anything, but I will tell you from my, personal experience, the Flip 5's camera probably has more features inside, but the iPhone 14's camera probably is the better one in terms of the overall features and kind of what you're getting within those devices. So that's something that I like a lot about the iPhone 14, is that type of device, first of all, is very good camera. I've liked it a lot. But the Flip 5 is probably the one that I look at more so than not as probably the one that has more features. But I think the iPhone 14 is the one that's probably more comfortable again and the more consistent camera. Now, if we're talking about the Galaxy S23, I think that's overall the better camera than these two. But because of the lack of the telephoto lens in the Flip 5, and because Samsung kind of puts a watered down camera on their flip and fold phones, it just kind of is in its own league. And I think the iPhones probably do a little bit better here than the Flips in my opinion. Now, the other thing here, moving on, is the software longevity. So between both these devices, they're again kind of in their own lane. The iPhone 14 is with iOS The Flip 5 is with Android, and it really depends on how you look at both of these ones. I definitely do think that the iPhones, as we normally probably have seen time and time again year after year, are going to outperform the Androids. It's typically kind of how it goes. So whatever iPhone comes out that year, whatever Samsung Galaxy comes out that year, the iPhones are typically going to outlast the Samsung Galaxies. And like I said, that's just what happens every single year. So I'm not really too sure what's going to be happening between these two, but I can tell you right now, the iPhone 14, by far, in my opinion, is definitely going to be outlasting the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5. And like I said, that's just what's going to happen. It happens every single year. And between these two, that's essentially what's going to be happening here too. So I like the iPhones a lot. I think the iPhone 14 is killing it in a lot of different ways. But I look at a phone like the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5, and I still think Samsung's doing a good job here. I think One UI is doing a really good job too there. But like I said, I think with the iPhones, the iPhone 14 is probably going to outlast the Galaxy Z Flip 5 when it comes down to it. Now, in terms of performance, the iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigs of RAM, where the Galaxy Z Flip 5 had that Snapdragon Hn2 chipset inside with 8 gigabytes of RAM inside of that model. And I will tell you the one thing I actually really do like about my Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5 over my iPhone 14 is probably the performance. I definitely do think that chipset inside of the, Snapdragon Hn2 is amazing. It's a very, very good chipset, and that's something that I actually appreciate a lot from Samsung. They threw in a really good chipset here that's the standard this year, and that's something I love. Any games you're going to play, any sort of, really anything you're going to do with it, it's going to be perfectly fine for the most part. It is, I would say, an improvement from the previous generation, so that was something that I really did like. From the Snapdragon Hn1, it was a bit of improvement, which was really cool. On the iPhone side, on the iPhone 14, this is also a very good performing, phone. I think Samsung, did a good job with the Z Flip 5. I think Apple did a really good job with the iPhone 14. It just so happens that it used the same chipset as the iPhone 13 from the year before. So it was kind of like a random thing. I feel like they could have done a little bit of a better job. But again, there's nothing we can really change about it now. But when it comes down to it, I think Samsung has done a really good job on the performance side. And I think Apple did a really good job on the performance side too. And I don't really think you're going to go from one phone to the other just based off the performance here. I think they're very similar in a lot of different ways. But I really do like how both these phones are very similar in the performance side, where they're very good performing devices, but they're just from different manufacturers. And to kind of sum up this video, what I'll definitely tell you is, I really do think that between these two devices, they are very good. I like these devices a lot. And I really do think that Samsung this year, they did make some improvements with the Z Flip 5, which was really cool. But I kind of do think at the same time as well, the iPhone 14, is a very good phone. There's not a lot to hate on that type of device. It's very, it's very, very, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's a very comfortable, easy phone to use. The Flip 5, if you're familiar with folding phones or flipping phones, then that's a really good device too. But I just don't think many people are comfortable using a flipping phone yet. And that's why I would probably recommend buying something like an iPhone 14 right now, more so than a Z Flip 5 in my opinion. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.